at least in part because of my ADHD. I have a really hard time being concise, so I didn't want to do like a million comments because of the character limit, so I hope you don't mind me responding in a video. But basically, it can really just include a lot of trial and error, which is a little bit unfortunate, but for me, it was well worth it. Um, and I found that at most stages of like experimenting, it was pretty clear if I was on the right path or not. Apologies for these baby hairs, they're driving me absolutely insane. I've tried multiple things to get them to slick down, and they are not having it today. But anyway, so I was initially diagnosed as a teenager, and I was seeing a like pediatric psychiatrist at the time, and so they knew that I had multiple things going on, including anxiety, but they had me start on Adderall, and then I reported back that like my anxiety got really bad. I was like feeling my heart race all the time, just really bad anxiety on Adderall. And their response to that was, well, when somebody has ADHD and anxiety, sometimes we have to like prioritize which one to treat because they can kind of be opposites. And at the time, I felt like my anxiety was a bigger challenge for me. I was able to do my homework and things like that. And so I thought my ADHD isn't that big of a problem, but I didn't understand like my memory and my ability to like recall words and my ability to switch tasks and things like that were also ADHD. Nobody had explained that to me. So I didn't think my ADHD was really that much of a challenge for me. And so I thought, well, I guess let's focus on the anxiety piece. And they weren't giving me like intense ADHD, or I'm sorry, intense anxiety medication. I was taking things like Wellbutrin or Zoloft, kind of more like antidepressant category of medications that can help a little bit with anxiety. So I still don't really understand why they had said they're opposites and that you kind of have to pick which one you treat, because my understanding now is that it's quite common for people to have both ADHD and anxiety and for both to be worked on at the same time. And especially like I only tried one ADHD medication and then they kind of almost encouraged me to quit trying. But I was like 15. I didn't have very involved or engaged parents. So I didn't know better at the time and just let it go. Then several years later, like 3 years ago, I talked to my doctor about it again, and they were really confused about how my like child psychiatrist had said that I had to like pick one or the other if you have ADHD and anxiety. But they said at that point, because I was older, I should retry Adderall because my brain like developed like finishing developing could have made the difference, and now Adderall might work great for me. So I did that again, had the same experience, made my anxiety worse. And from there, I really just kind of kept talking to my doctor about like what I was experiencing with different medications, and they just kept kind of suggesting things, and I just kind of followed their guidance. And it did take kind of a while. I ended up trying Adderall, then Vyvanse, which were both of those are like in the same category of medication, and they both had a pretty similar effect on me. They both kind of made me feel like the Energizer Bunny, but I couldn't like direct it anywhere. It was like this really intense nervous energy that was very uncomfortable. And I felt like they made my hyperfocus really, really severe. Like I struggle with hyperfocus at times when I'm not medicated. But my ability to change tasks was like non-existent on those medications. I was like so locked in that like and it also kind of made my memory worse in the sense that like everything else around me would just like quit existing entirely. It was, I don't like those medications at all. They were great for some people, of course, but they were not a good fit for me. So anyway, after that, they said maybe we should try some non-stimulants because those are less likely to cause the anxiety symptoms. So we tried Strattera, and that I did stay on Strattera for quite a while because it felt like it was definitely helping me, and it wasn't causing the anxiety. But so I think I was on that for like the better part of a year, and I thought like this is a huge help and this is worth it. But it did have some like negative side effects for me. It made the tip of my nose really cold, it made my fingers really cold, and my toes. and I think it was kind of giving me like Raynaud's. I don't know if you've ever seen that, like the tips of fingers and toes can turn like white or even like reddish and purple. And it also made me really tired in the afternoons. But like, even despite all of that, it was helping me so much that it felt worth it for a while. So for a while I stayed with that, but then I'm in therapy, and my therapist, I was talking to them one day, and they had suggested like, why don't you have you ever considered like trying other medications just to see if like maybe there's something else out there that would work as good as Strattera but wouldn't have those side effects for you. And it just kind of made me realize that like I had this mindset of like, well, this is good enough and I can tolerate this, so that's why I had stuck with Strattera and felt like it was worth it. But yeah, I realized that like that is kind of not really having like the most hopeful mindset of like, hey, it's okay to try other things. And like part of what they had said too was like, you could try other medications, and if they don't work, you could come back to Strattera, right? Like kind of what is there to lose other than a little bit of time experimenting? And that just isn't like a natural mindset for me, I guess. Like that kind of that you can just keep trying things and see was new to me. But I made an appointment with my doctor and kind of shared this, and they're like, yeah, absolutely, we can try things and you can come back to Strattera if the other ones don't work better. And then so they had me try guanfacine, which is another non-stimulant. That one didn't cause me any problems, but it just didn't really seem to do anything. And so then they shared with me that there's kind of, among stimulants, there's really two main categories. There's kind of like Adderall and like other medications that have the same main ingredient as Adderall. And then there's Ritalin and other medications that have the primary ingredient that Ritalin has. And so, and there's way more of these two different stimulant classes than there is non-stimulants. So she's like, we haven't tried anything in this Ritalin category yet. And so that's like almost half of all the medications out there. So why don't we try that type of medication, because it's really a lot different than like the Adderall based medications. And so the one that I tried from the Ritalin category was Concerta. And it was great. Like I'm still on that. So it was exactly what I had hoped. It worked as well, or maybe even slightly better than Strattera, but no side effects. So yeah. So I guess a few things, like, don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid to keep trying things, and then you can go back to something if you find like this really is as good as it gets. You can go back to the one that worked okay for you. But also keep in mind that there are three kind of primary classes of ADHD medication: the Adderall ones, the non-stimulant ones, and the Ritalin ones. And I think within the non-stimulant ones, there's a couple of like core, like different like active ingredients or whatever too. But yeah, so I think that's something to consider, is like, I think I would suggest trying at least a Ritalin based one, an Adderall based one, and then non-stimulants to kind of get a basic taste of each of those, just because, at least for me, it seems like the Ritalin based ones are what really works best with my psychology.